In Lane County alone, there are about 2,000 homeless people and a poverty rate of 17%. So glad you're with us on Comcast Newsmakers. I'm Ken Ackerman. Joining us is Susan Band. She's the Executive Director of ShelterCare. Thanks so much for being with us.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Lane County, is that more so or like many other counties that are dealing with the same problems? Or is the rate a lot higher here?
I'd say we're not as bad as Detroit, to put it in context, but I think in Oregon, yes, we're one of the communities that's been more hard hit with the economy, loss of jobs, and a slow returning economy.
Right, you said a lot of people that lost their jobs during the recession just haven't gotten
haven't
back.
been able to get back.
So does that change the face of poverty? Give me a spectrum on who is becoming homeless these days.
Well, up until a few years ago, we actually had a fairly kind of continuum that was predictable. We had the chronically homeless people who've been on the streets for very long times, typically because of a disability or a mental illness or some kind of defect that was creating difficulty for them to be normalized. And then you had homeless families with kids, and they were very, very poor. And so poverty was the triggering issue for homelessness. We're now seeing a lot more situational homelessness, where people who have lost their jobs, exhausted their savings, begun to develop poor credit because they've exhausted that resource, can't pay rent, lose housing.
And this could be middle class.
Yes, yes.
So it's a whole new
experience.
So what ShelterCare does is you really cater to three segments of the population of homeless. Tell me about that.
We work with families with kids who are at risk of homelessness or homeless, and we try to get them back into housing as quickly as possible so that there's as little disruption as possible for the kids. We also work with a population of adults with mental illness whose disability has really made it difficult for them to maintain housing or get housing or have organized lives. We really try and work with them again to get them into housing. We figure that without housing, nothing else works. Without housing, it's hard to wake up in the morning and make your appointments. Mm-hmm. And then the third population are adults who've had some kind of accident or injury or trauma and have a brain injury as a result of that.
And the state would contract out to ShelterCare as opposed to put somebody in a state institutional hospital, because that's a different model than the new thought.
Right. The new thinking really is that being served in the community in the most independent setting possible is going to really promote recovery. And people do recover, they get better. So we help people live independently in their own apartment. They're taking care of their own apartment. We help them get jobs with employment supports. And help them navigate in the community. They feel better about themselves and they become good citizens.
For folks who don't have a place to go back to, you do have residences.
Right, we work with, we have a long waiting list, but yes, we have quite a number of apartments in the community so that people with a mental illness who have been homeless, we work with them to get them into housing and keep them in housing, providing the supports they need to be in housing.
So at the very basic root, you integrate back into normalcy is
Absolutely.
What ShelterCare
does. Starting with housing and then building in supports, because with housing then people can organize their lives, can get along with, the things that they need to do in the community, and we can support them to become really healthy.
And do you have volunteers or paid staff?
Oh, well, we have both. We have about 200 positions that we fill, and then we have another 375 to 400 volunteers every year doing all kinds of different things in our programs. So, yeah, from driving clients to, playing card games with them in the residences and so forth.
All right, very good. Susan Band, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And we want to thank you for being here on Comcast Newsmakers. We're on the campus of the University of Oregon at Autzen Stadium. So glad you're with us. For the crew here, I'm Ken Ackerman. Make it a great day, everyone.